con el Star Citizen Live, que en este caso se llama Visual Efectiva o Visuales Efectivos. Buenas RV, buenas Baldric, buenas Chucker. Y vamos al asunto, a ver. 25 segundos. Dos, uno, engage. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live, affecting visuals. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take an hour out of our week and bring some developers onto the show, and we take questions.
Bueno, está hablando de lo que es el Star Citizen Live, que pillan preguntas de la gente en Spectrum y es donde traen a los desarrolladores al directo para hacer cuestiones y ver el progreso del desarrollo.
Members from our esteemed visual effects team on the show. Let's go ahead and introduce them, see who we're talking to today. We'll just go clockwise from the top. Leo, tell us who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Leo.
Hi, I'm Leo. I'm a VFX programmer. So I work in the VFX team. I help the VFX team with like producing tools and implementing systems that will drive VFX.
Ayuda al equipo de efectos especiales creando herramientas.
Side of VFX. So when certain effects should trigger, how like different systems try to trigger VFX. I provide tools to other programmers to add VFX themselves to their systems and so on. So yeah, that's...
Sí, bueno, cuando los efectos especiales tienen que activarse de alguna manera por alguna situación, pues él provee herramientas a otros desarrolladores para poder realizar esas tareas.
I've worked a lot with ship VFX, so thrusters, atmospheric entry, trails, like wing chip vortices and contrails. I've done some work on the weather, like all the wind implementation.
Ha trabajado en el efecto que hacen las alas cuando están en la atmósfera, efectos de los motores, también en el clima.
In very early stages, but yeah, it's an ongoing project.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed following along with with the process of it in our sprint reports. It's been a big hit among the community, so I think we're all very excited about the possibilities of fire down the line.
Yeah.
Y también trabajando con el fuego. Dice Discolando que están, o sea, que hemos estado al tanto del progreso, que lo hemos visto en los noticieros y que bueno, que de momento que están en las primeras fases, pero que están progresando en el tema de la dispersión del fuego y todo eso, la expansión del fuego y demás, ¿no?
These guys.
All right. And you already know who I am, so we'll continue on clockwise. Tio, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hi, I'm Teo, and I do visual effects. I'm a visual effects artist.
Leo es un artista de efectos visuales.
Systems and textures, and work with the tools that Leo and the rest of the programmers provide to.
Que esta sería la persona que trabaja con las herramientas que hacen pues estos dos de arriba. Y el resto de equipo provee en tema de texturas y partículas, etc.
And yeah, environments, clouds, smoke vents.
Me dice ventiladores. Cuando vemos el humo salir de rejillas o nubes, todo ese tema también se dedica a hacer estas cosas. Buenas, Rojiri.
That'll help our community management team pull them out from all the other chat and send them on to me. We also, as usual, put up a thread earlier in the week where we allowed folks to post questions in Spectrum and vote up which ones they wanted to see answered most. So we'll go ahead and start with those. Just a general reminder that these are the visual effects teams. So while there are certainly some gameplay elements related to it, like Leo said, and stuff like this, in general, if the question is how do you create weather, we're on board. If the question is how will weather affect my spaceship when I do this,
Dice que las preguntas que podemos hacer si nos preguntamos cómo creamos el clima, que es una pregunta adecuada para el equipo de efectos especiales, pero si preguntamos cómo el clima afecta a nuestra nave, eso no es una pregunta para este equipo.
Star Citizen. So right off the bat, the number one most voted question. We always start with the number one right off the bat. Mike, lots of people want to know how the work on the new Shield VFX are going. We've been talking.
¿Cómo está yendo el trabajo de efectos especiales en los nuevos escudos?
It's been progressing steadily, really. It's going well, I would say. We've recently, I guess, come to the end of our what we call the pre-production side of it. There's been a lot of we've recently started to invest more time in concepting these kind of effects where there's not really any real world reference. So yeah, we've got.
Dice que tienen que hacer los conceptos, o se han tenido que hacer los conceptos de cómo se comportan los escudos porque no hay ninguna representación real y que de momento pues sigue progresando adecuadamente el tema de los efectos especiales en esos escudos, que ya sabéis que utiliza la tecnología de Signal Distance Field, que es la misma tecnología que podemos ver hoy aplicada en la entrada de la atmósfera de naves.
Kind of slightly wackier ideas as well, stuff that's not necessarily in the concepts, that kind of just ideas that come when you see this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'd say I would say.
Y además, a medida que van trabajando, dice que van surgiendo ideas que no estaban puestas en el concepto inicial, pero que van surgiendo a medida que vas trabajando con este tipo de material.
So yeah, going well.
Now, the pre-production phases often vary in length. Some pre-production phases are only a week or two. You hit something real fast, and some pre-production phases take quite a bit of time, like this one has. Was some of that due to waiting for various SDF tech coming online?
Yeah, very much so. So we knew from quite an early stage, really. I know that the backers have been aware of this for a long time, that the SDF, the signed distance field, we knew that we were going to be using them to generate these effects and to have the effects kind of driven by the SDFs. So we knew there was a lot of work that was upstream. We sort of used terms upstream and downstream. We're one of those teams that are downstream from other teams. So we knew there was a lot of work that was going on with the vehicle teams and the physics teams that was necessary in order for these SDFs to become a reality. So yeah, that was a large part of it. That was not really why anything was delayed, but that was what we needed to be able to have in for us to do our thing as well. So yeah.
Dice que en definitiva han tenido que hacer mucho trabajo con el equipo de físicas y estar en contacto con el equipo de vehículos para poner en funcionamiento el Signal Distance Field, si eso ha sido el paso necesario para poder hacer todos los efectos y demás.
No. Well, the actual creation of the clouds is not our domain. The work that we do, similar to what I've just said with signed distance fields, I guess, the work that we do will come in when those clouds that are kind of the domain of the core engineering team, really. Once that side of things is there, then that's where we come in and we'll start to care about.
Que está comentando si el equipo de efectos especiales son los encargados de hacer el cómo funcionan las nubes, el comportamiento de las nubes. Y comenta de que no, que realmente eso no es una parte. Hay una parte de ingeniería por ahí que cuando esté construida, digamos, la estructura base, la estructura núcleo, ellos pueden trabajar a partir de esa estructura cuando esa tecnología esté implementada. Lo mismo que pasa con los escudos, ¿no? Con el Signal Distance Field, que ellos tienen la tecnología para reconocer pues X puntos sobre la nave. Ya hemos visto también como con las nubes tienen como una especie de esqueleto que se va moviendo, que se va modificando. Entonces ellos lo que hacen es utilizar ese producto para luego pues poner los efectos necesarios.
It's like we collaborate with the people who are actually implementing the tech, so like I've got good visibility on what it is that we're doing for it, but yeah, we don't actually make the thing.
Okay. Well, I know it's a popular hot button topic with the community, as we've seen in multiple question threads. So what I can offer to the community right now is that when the appropriate time comes, we will have a feature on the creation of planetary clouds, volumetric clouds, and all that stuff as soon as it's ready, at a point that's ready to talk about and show you.
Dice que sabe que la comunidad está muy deseosa, ¿no?, de saber el tema de la tecnología de nubes y tal, bueno, Crusader y todo eso. Entonces dice que en el momento que esta tecnología esté hecha, más avanzada, realizada y esté lista para hablar ya, pues harán un programa hablando de eso, claro.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it kind of does depend on what we've just spoken about with the clouds themselves. We're obviously going to be anything that you imagine would be happening is going to happen. So we're going to have rain. We need to have that. One thing that I'm more interested in or more excited by is like more localized types of weather. So storms, tornadoes, whirlwinds, little dust devils, those kind of things. Lots.
Bueno, que con respecto al clima, que vamos a tener todo lo que podéis imaginar. Vamos a tener lluvia, tornados, remolinos, vamos a tener de todo en, en el tema de las nubes, ¿no?
So the player can see that if they go towards a tornado, you probably shouldn't do, but I'm sure that people, would enjoy doing that in a game. To see that like the visuals match what is going to happen to the actual ship or the player if
Que además algo que los jugadores seguramente van a encantar es irse directamente hacia un tornado y ver pues todos los efectos visuales y todos los efectos que van añadidos a eso y los efectos que la nave. Seguro que los jugadores pues vamos a estar entusiasmados de poder volar hacia un tornado, ¿verdad?
Yesterday, the day before, this phenomenon that somebody was photographing the weird. I can't even remember the squid thing that happens. I'd never seen that before. Yeah, it was like a jellyfish in the sky. If I had seen it, I would have thought I was in some kind of Stranger Things moment. But apparently, it's a real thing that happens, and I never knew about it. So, let's move to quantum travel. We got a lot of questions about the quantum travel effects specifically. While there are several variations of that, like when you fly an alien ship, you get a slightly different quantum travel effect. The core QT effect has kind of been in place for a while now, and some of our backers indicated in the question thread that maybe it hasn't aged as well as other things have improved, or that they're simply tired of seeing the same effect. For the last while.
Claro, está hablando de que algunos backers, pues sabemos que los efectos del Quantum Travel llevan tiempo puestos y que no han envejecido tan bien como otras tecnologías a medida que se han implementado otras cosas. Si va a haber algún tipo de cambio a los efectos de lo que es el Quantum Travel en general.
Or basically, all the questions combined into one. Sort of like, what are our thoughts about changing the standard quantum travel effect?
¿Cuáles son los pensamientos de cambiar el efecto estándar del Quantum Travel, del efecto Quantum Travel?
Yeah, so for sure, you kind of nailed it there. I think there's a bit of visual fatigue that comes in when it's one of the earlier effects that people just see a lot. Like, I've seen that quantum travel effect a few times myself. And yeah, we use the term rot. Like some things rot over time. It's just that the tech that's driving the effects might have changed. So certainly with quantum travel, there have been fundamental changes to the back end work. Like what is the engine doing with that actual process of quantum traveling, which does change how the effects are behaving. So I won't say they're broken, but they definitely don't look like they used to, and the timings get changed as well. So from a design point of view, it's really important that they care about like the spool up time, and they care about all those kind of hooks that we then use to drive the effects. So I guess what I'm saying is we're aware that they are due an update, and that is planned and scheduled. And actually, our VFX concept artist Rob, he's I think next week. In fact, I think that's his next task. He's going to be jumping onto concepting the quantum travel.
Que dice que la semana que viene van a empezar a trabajar en el Quantum Travel porque son conscientes del estado del Quantum Travel, de que por decirlo de alguna manera, como que está algo roto. Y que bueno, que realmente dice que tienen una idea bastante clara de cómo quieren hacer el Quantum Travel.
Kind of like the more dynamic element of it and variables and things changing. I think absolutely that's something that we always look to do with our effects. I've talked in the past about emitter strength. So particles have like a strength curve, and Leo can probably elaborate on this, but we can actually use that strength curve to we can map that to other variables. So if let's just say the quantum drive was getting damaged, we could actually visually reflect that. We could show a much more chaotic looking effect.
Claro, dice que lo que lo que dice que pueden aprovechar es la fuerza de la curva, porque sabemos que el quantum travel empieza despacio y en el punto medio es cuando va más rápido. Y dice que pueden utilizar ese tipo de datos para poder hacer variaciones, hacer el quantum travel más variable. Incluso en el caso de que tengamos el quantum travel dañado, reflejar esos efectos, como que se vea más loco todo lo que es el túnel ese que se genera con el quantum.
Yeah.
Dynamic things we could do with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
okay, for like a tech point of view, it was a while ago like implemented the QT effects, and one of the limitations we have right now is that the effects are set up on the ships. So if you change your quantum drive, the effects will remain the same. One of the things I'd like to do at some point is move that. We don't have those limitations anymore. So like
Dice que ahora mismo hay unas limitaciones en que aunque tú cambies el componente del quantum, el efecto sigue siendo el mismo. Y eso es algo de lo que quieren hacer también, que si tú cambias el motor de salto, que tengas un efecto distinto en la nave.
So somebody could take the quantum drive from like an alien ship, like the Scout has a very different quantum effect, and bring it over to a Miss ship or an Aegis ship and put it in there and get the change in effect kind of thing.
If the design of those quantum drives allows that, of course. But yeah, that would
something we'd like to pursue.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you mentioned the different styles as well. Obviously, the most common one is the default, as we call it, the kind of the streaky blue one. But yeah, we've got different visual styles for different alien races. So we can, and we've always talked about like having high and low tech variables as well. So maybe a cheaper drive would look different. It's a bit like, putting a...
Dice que muchas veces también hablaron de que, bueno, que evidentemente sabemos que hay efectos para las naves Alien y que hablaron también de la posibilidad de quizás una de las maneras de distinguir sería de un quantum barato o un quantum caro, tener diferentes efectos visuales. Como una de las posibilidades para poder cambiar el efecto de los quantum.
Now that we can see other ships on re-entry, what are your thoughts on meteor showers?
I'm going to let Teo take this one. Take it away, Teo.
Well, I have tested this, and it is on the VFX side, obviously completely possible. It would just depend on the design requirements, perhaps story elements in Squadron, things like that. But it is on our side, it's possible, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. I imagine it's one of those things that's easy to make it look cool from a distance, but then you have to figure out the gameplay implications of what if somebody goes to that meteor shower and flies to that. Now there's it's more than just looking cool. Now there has to be gameplay implications to it.
Yeah.
And that's a much more complicated conversation.
Bueno, creo que lo he pillado así más o menos al vuelo, pero creo que se ha referido de que ahora mismo podemos ver a otras naves cuando saltamos con Quantum Link, vamos a poder ver vemos como otras naves saltando al lado. ¿Cuál sería la posibilidad de ver eso desde la distancia, no? O de...
That's a great point, Leo. That's the challenge there. It's like that thing's got to come from somewhere at some point. So,
Yeah.
Where? It can't. Is it hidden behind is it in a gas cloud? Is it hidden? There's always a possibility that someone could be at that place where the thing spawns.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah, that's quite a unique challenge to our game.
NPCs in games have monster closets. Are there such things as meteor closets where they can spawn and come from? And again, they have to be visible from like every angle because you can't control where the player is going to be when they see it. So lots of interesting challenges there, but.
If you want to see how it looks, just get a couple of friends to all come down more or less at the same time, at the same speed on a planet, and then that's kind of how it'll look.
Cool.
Vale, no, error. Lo que estaban... Error. Vale, ahora ya entendí lo que estaban hablando. Creo que lo que se referían es a una lluvia de meteoritos, me parece. Es que, claro, es que lo he pillado muy rápido, que me tenéis que disculpar, pero creo que estaban hablando de la posibilidad de ver una lluvia de meteoritos, creo. Vamos a validar esa posibilidad, porque incluso dice de que si queremos ver cómo sería el efecto, pues que simplemente nos juntemos con varios amigos para ver cómo es la entrada en los planetas y que pues así sería cómo se vería, ¿no? Cuando vemos toda la entrada de los efectos de las naves en atmósfera.
Was a good thing for me.
Mm.
But
Sorry
yeah,
por no
it's not
estar
like it's going to
pendiente,
make a
tan
fundamental
pendiente aquí,
change to
chicos.
how we work or anything like that.
Yeah, for me personally, at least, I think it won't make much of a big difference because it's not really the code I work in that much. It's more Simon, our lead, who will be doing most of the work there. But yeah, it will be quite a big of chunk of time to get it all working and tested, and yeah, but
Yeah.
it's quite exciting because I think it will allow for some more particles and better features, and yeah.
It wouldn't be a VFX show without a question about gas clouds. So, Mike, where are we at with the gas clouds?
No
How
habría
they coming
no
along?
habría un show de efectos especiales sin hablar de las nubes de gas. ¿Dónde estamos con las nubes de
And
gas?
I guess it's similar to the Shields topic. That it's long been talked about and shown, and the backers will have, our very patient backers will have seen lots and lots of updates on the gas clouds. We still have weekly syncs with all the people that are involved in it. It's I would say it's going well. Like earlier on with the gas cloud work, we were kind of more focused, I guess, on Squadron in particular, but we've more recently, at least this year, been discussing options with the PU team as well. So there's lots of nice looking gas clouds for Lagrange points. The actual tech itself, again, that's more of a graphics thing, and that is pretty much the tech itself, the gas clouds. That's pretty much all, in a good state and
Dice que lo que es la tecnología en general de gases que está en un bastante buen estado y que están centrándose sobre todo en Escuadrón 42.
Chips in there, and let's really try and break this thing. There's lots of work that comes from that, just more boring stuff, but like bug fixes and lots things that we didn't really anticipate previously. From our point of view, like the actual, I guess things like the different space loop effects, that we want to have themes to the gas cloud. So we want a designer to be able to take a gas cloud that the artist has made, and we want to be able to just have that same gas cloud, if you placed it 5 times in a row, be able to change all the properties so that it actually looks and behaves in a different way, and the experience inside that.
Que dice que hay tareas más aburridas, como sería también una parte de tareas más aburridas que sería como corregir bugs, y también que lo que quieren lograr es que si un artista diseña una nube de gas, lo que quieren conseguir es poder copiar y pegar replicar esa nube de gas, pero replicarla con diferentes propiedades para que tenga también diferentes comportamientos. Eso es a lo que quieren llegar.
See it for themselves.
So much of what you mentioned, so much of what you do depends on the work of others. Making a video game is a collaborative effort between multiple teams, but with VFX, is absolutely no exception. It's you've got to work with the engine team in order to get you the underlying tech you need before you can color something. If anything you do is going to be emissive, and a lot of VFX are, you got to work with the lighting team to figure out how that's going to affect dynamic lighting. Of course, if you want these things to actually have knock-on effects and stuff. I think there's actually a question, we'll get to this next one, about explosions actually being physicalized in the world and having knock-ons. You got to get with gameplay design and stuff like that. It's definitely a collaborative process.
Hugely, yeah.
Está hablando de que a la hora de crear un juego es una colaboración de varios equipos. Y otra... Y hablando de explosiones, que estaban comentando las explosiones, de poder tener un efecto de golpeo, ¿no? Cuando se produzcan, si van a tener efectos de área y demás. Y está comentando de que sí, de que claro que va a tener efectos de área.
Everyone will be familiar with Rich Tyra.
Actor feature team.
Yep. So there's a lot of work that those guys have been doing, and I'm sure we've been showing it and updating the backers about it regarding like physical reactions, like impulses. So yeah, an explosion should if you happen to be standing, say someone fires a grenade from a grenade launcher. I'm looking at you, Tio, and that explosion happens over there. Absolutely, it should knock the player kind of sideways and stumble, and that's all.
Claro, dice que si alguien te lanza una granada y con un lanzagranadas, ¿no? Y te la lanza al lado, pues el personaje va a tener como una reacción a eso, o sea, te va a noquear. Y eso, pues están trabajando en colaboración con el Actor Features Team. Y bueno, pues Actor Features Team o Actor Systems Team, no me acuerdo ahora. Pero bueno, con los que se dedican a hacer los movimientos de los personajes y demás, que vamos a tener, pues, eso, un efecto de shock, de expansión y demás, y eso se va a ver reflejado en los personajes.
Either. We're just going to move on. Let's go to the live chat here for some questions. Right off the bat, what special effects have you had the most problems with? Have you get,
Eh, con- ¿Cuál es ¿con qué efectos habéis tenido más problemas a la hora de hacer efectos especiales?
Wappa, what's been the thing that's just driven you crazy?
I mean,
some
so
of the old view effects, perhaps, that have been around in the environments mostly, in like Lorville and Area 18.
I think for me, what you probably sympathise with this tier, but I think for me, one of the problem effects is smoke from a barrel of a gun, which sounds like a really simple thing to do, but that.
Dice que para él uno de los mayores problemas que ha tenido ha sido el hacer el efecto del humo cuando se dispara una bala de un arma, que parece algo fácil de hacer, pero que es más complejo de lo que parece.
Like accurate in real world terms. So again, with our game, you have to make sure that your effect looks right in daylight. You have to make sure it looks right at nighttime, up in space where the glare of the sun is intense. So what we end up doing is you want a kind of a nice subtle smoke emission from the barrel, and you always get this from the art and designers working on weapons. Oh, hey, could you just get us a little bit of smoke coming out the barrel? And the problem is that you do that and it looks great, but then you see someone firing it in space and it's super bright. It's like, oh god, it looks really bad. So now I've got to tone it right down, and then I've toned it right down. So then I get people saying, "No, I can't see any smoke coming out of my gun." So it's really tricky in that sense. And also another side of that. I'm sorry if this is interesting, but another one is the fact that you can move around really quickly. So you have to have this, like the particle count. Obviously, we can't spawn too many.
Que está comentando de que los problemas que tiene el poder expulsar ese humo, dejar restos de humo cuando disparas, es que, por ejemplo, en el espacio llegaron a una situación de que era demasiado brillante, entonces le redujeron el brillo. Y al reducirle el brillo no se podía tener la misma sensación, decía los rayadores que no había ese humo, ¿no? Y luego, también el otro tema es que, aunque parezca aburrido, que dice, a la hora de estar disparando, como que estamos disparando, pues moviéndonos y tal, y que tenían que tener en cuenta también el problema de la cantidad de partículas que había alrededor. O sea, que son problemas a los que se enfrentaron.
We had some trouble of like figuring out when to spawn the effects. Our ships don't really fly fast enough to physically physically accurately spawn the effect when it should, like in real life. So you have to kind of fake it because it's a really cool effect. But yeah, it's kind of we've had a lot of back and forth between different teams about what we can do to change the experience or change the calculations. It's yeah, for me it's I guess a bit more of a technical point of view, not really like visual, but yeah.
John Crew, you can send your letters to Leo, care of Fat Imperium Games UK. Manchester. So I'm just kidding. So, you spoke of the reentry effects. One of the questions we got here when we were showing the development of that on the sprint report, at one point there was a hull shader that would make the hull, a heat shader for the hull that would make the hull glow if you were doing a bad atmospheric reentry. Is that happening still? Is that off the table? What happened to that? Was that just R&D?
Before you answer, I wasn't going to mention it, but one of the things that is difficult based on the previous answer is putting making sure the effect, the reason for the effect is understood and seen. And on the atmospheric entry effect, Deadly and I worked on, that glow is a big part of that.
You leaving it for me to answer then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is still planned. That's the short answer. It's not. We sort of R&D'd it and we showed it. We haven't taken it off the table. We're definitely planning on doing it when we can. The issue there is that again, I'm probably just going to be repeating myself a lot, but it's the collaboration. It's not something that we as a VFX team can implement. That needs to be. We need to get like time from the graphics team, so Ali.
Están hablando de que a la hora de hacerle una entrada en atmósfera y demás, si tú pones a la nave en una inclinación que no es la adecuada, como que hay un efecto que sucede cuando la nave está entrando en una forma no adecuada a la atmósfera. Entonces está comentando de que se está comentando Discolando si eso lo van a quitar, lo han quitado definitivamente, si sigue estando en el juego, ¿no? Han dicho que ahora mismo no está y que el tema está que está comentando de que eso no depende solo del equipo de efectos especiales, sino de otros equipos que están involucrados en el desarrollo del juego y necesitan esa tecnología para poder hacer eso viable, ¿no?
Yes, it's always a question. In the simplest forms, yeah, we'd always like to do it. We'd always love to do it. We'd always love to pursue it. It's just a question of with everything else that we're trying to do, and even with as many folks as we have and as many studios around the world, there are still a finite number of resources. So you have to always direct your efforts towards the things that any given individual can work on. So yeah, priorities are often the course there.
It will be needed for the fire propagation stuff.
Yeah. So the reason why it didn't really work was that we have the glow on the ship itself with the damage map. So if you shoot the ship, you get like the glowing parts. So we could use that for making the ship glow, but all the items attached, such as the landing gear, the glass, the doors, even they didn't glow with it, and it's basically we need the same kind of glow tech on all those other objects. And so one of the things we're requesting now from the graphics team is kind of like a more generic glow shader, so that we can use that same shader.
De lo que están hablando en definitiva es que el efecto es el resplandor, el glow, lo que están hablando, ¿no? Que al final no solo por el tema de las entradas en atmósfera y demás, que es una tecnología que también necesitan para otras cosas, como puede ser para el fuego y para otros objetos, y que todavía no está implementado, o sea, no tienen esa herramienta, ¿no? Tienen que hacerlo, y también se va a utilizar para otros sistemas, no solo para el tema de la entrada en atmósfera.
Time now. I personally find it very, very interesting, which is why I include it. And then luckily the community has agreed. Why is the entity to voxel propagation important and necessary? And beyond that, what are the next steps? Like, when do we start updating the fire effect itself? And then the question that actually came from the chat was, will it change color based on fuel? Like, basically, how far do we intend to take this? Let's just make it a simple question and go from there.
All right, so we prepared a little demo for the fire propagation, so I can go through the demo
Sure.
and answer some of those.
A lot of the questions. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to do a screen share?
Yep.
Bueno, está comentando de por qué es tan importante la herramienta de voxel, propagación voxel, para el fuego, y si va a haber cambios a la hora de distintos combustibles, si va a haber cambios incluso en la tonalidad, el color del fuego, de las llamas.
You can send your letters to Leo, care of Cloud Imperium Games UK, Winslow. Go ahead.
So we are going to base our fire on voxels, so you can see the square. I can put
Dice que van a basar el fuego en voxel y que podemos ver ese cuadrado, esta zona marcada.
But like those are all voxels with material properties.
Ya dice que todos son voxels con materiales de propagación, todo lo que vemos ahí, eso verde.
Voxels, we are going to bake the environment, and in the environment we have material properties. So, for example, plastic.
Claro, en cada uno de esos voxels, que son los cubitos esos, vamos a poder definir las propiedades de ese cuadro, en este caso materiales.
Done for all of this to kind of be implemented, but for now, this, for example, says plastic. So in plastic, we have all of these properties which will affect fire. In here,
Claro, le están diciendo que en el caso de plástico, que sabemos ya que el suelo de la Origin es de plástico en realidad, se están estafando, no es de madera. Y pone ahí pues todo lo que sería de las propiedades del humo, combustible, ahí vemos todo, ¿no?
System and see how far we can get with that. And then we have an entity as well. So what's the difference between an entity and a voxel? Basically, a lot of environment in our game is static. It will never move, and we have a lot of those kind of static objects, and it's mainly for performance reasons. We can't keep track of the fire state in all of those objects. For example, here in this voxel, we have all of these dirty pillows. They like we can't really set each
Why,
pillow.
Leo? Why?
Set the dirty pillows on fire, Leo.
Yeah, we can't set them all separately on fire. So we kind of average out all of these properties inside a voxel. So for example, if I
Claro, dice que la diferencia entre una entidad y el voxel sería que ellos no pueden definir lo que es cada objeto, cómo se comporta el fuego con cada objeto. Entonces lo que pueden hacer es un cubo y en ese cubo hacer una media de los materiales que hay aquí dentro y en base a esa composición definir las propiedades de lo que sería el voxel para el comportamiento del fuego, ¿no? O sea, la cantidad de humo, el combustible, la radiación, la temperatura de convección, tenéis todo aquí, ¿no?
also, if I set this voxel on fire, we'll have the kind of generic effect that most properties will have, most materials will have. But we can also, for example, this one has fabric, which is a different material and a different effect as well. So we'll have a more kind of low effect compared to the high flames from the generic one. And
These are work in progress, so
Claro, estamos viendo de que aquí pues vemos en la parte de la izquierda un efecto general de cómo sería el fuego y aquí al tener otro componente que es Fabric, que lo veis aquí, pues las llamas se comportarían pues en un perfil más bajo que en el otro caso, que también tengamos en cuenta que esto es un trabajo en proceso, que todavía no está terminado.
This one, I set the vegetation. I don't know if it's very well visible with the quality of teams, but this one has like ash things floating up the flames, so you kind of can see like the ash.
Bueno, ahí vemos que están yendo otra propiedad que incluso estamos viendo ceniza flotando para encima. La verdad es que es una pasada lo que están haciendo, ¿eh? Esto va a ser una locura cuando esto se deteriore a medida que el fuego vaya pasando y todo, madre mía.
It's spreading around. We also have a fog volume.
Ahí vemos cómo se está esparciendo por los
The
alrededores.
room is getting a bit foggy because of all the smoke being released by the fire.
Vemos también como la habitación hay como una niebla, ¿no? En plan rollo humo en la habitación, porque vemos como pues debido a la causa del fuego, que eso también lo están implementando.
Toxic gases, your room will start fogging up to kind of add to the visuals. I'll reset this to kind of make it.
Que en el caso de que además dice que cuando esté ardiendo, pues se producirán gases tóxicos que también son añadidos a los visuales.
Propagation here in this area. We have a few ways of propagating the fire. So the first one is, let's go for radiation. Radiation is basically your object shoots ray of energy kind of things to nearby objects. So it will kind of heat up by radiation. This is not the most effective way of heating up an object, but it's kind of simulated anyway.
Think infrared, but and not nuclear radiation.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, good point.
Different wavelength.
Está diciendo que una de las maneras de propagar el calor sería por radiación, en el sentido de pues traspaso de temperatura a otros objetos.
In your room, we won't do like full fluid simulation for this, but we will try and add in gravity in there, so that if you have a low gravity, then the convection won't be as strong. While if you have a high gravity, then there will be more and more convection. We'll also try to model in wind so that the wind direction of your fire affects the
Propagation.
propagation.
Madre mía, están hablando de que el tema de la convección, de que si según tengas más o menos gravedad, pues eso afectará a cómo se propagan las llamas. Aparte de también quieren hacer que el viento pues modifique la forma en la que se propagan las llamas también.
Those voxels above it to catch
Buenas ya,
fire.
Carburo.
Yes, for example, if we set a voxel on fire near a wall, if I can find one, then there should be more propagation upwards rather than around it. And the last type of
Claro, está diciendo de que efectivamente si ponen el fuego alrededor de un muro, que habría más propagación que si lo ponen simplemente en el medio y medio, ¿no?
not all material types will do this kind of behavior, but it is possible for that object to have a chance to ignite when it receives damage. And
Aparte de que no todos los objetos van a tener estas propiedades, pero hay unas posibilidades de que ciertos objetos cuando reciban daño se prendan fuego, ¿no?
and the radiation is really, it's deterministic. It's always the same. It will go up with gravity, with certain wind direction. The radiation is always like based on the strength. It will always go like just around. So the damage gives a little bit of randomness.
Very cool.
And then was one more thing I wanted to show here. So with the entities and voxels, so for example, if I set this voxel on fire and I move this brush, this static brush, the fire doesn't move because everything is baked into this voxel. While if I set this dynamic entity on fire, we can move it and the fire will move with it. And what this means is that you can kind of set fire around here just because this tool is on fire.
And never get tired of seeing this.
It's
Están diciendo de que nunca me cansaré de ver esto, ¿no? Dice que tiene con la herramienta de entidad dinámica, que es lo que están haciendo. Si solo fuera el objeto sin más, al moverlo del objeto, como está en voxel, no se prendería el objeto estaría en llamas, pero al combinar esas tecnologías que tienen, pues hacen que si efectivamente si el objeto está en llamas, esas llamas se propaguen con el objeto también, se mueva.
Physics, the barrel will start rolling.
Oh, mama.
And we can keep track. Oh, this is like a made in Britain extinguisher. So,
bueno,
if we track this voxel,
están echando coña con el extintor porque está en llamas, hecho en Bretaña, ¿no?
See we can track the temperature of this voxel, and
La Gran Bretaña, por
goes
supuesto.
above the yellow line, it will go into the smoke temperature, so it will start smoking, and that means that the voxel can also start to catch on fire. So in here you see this, just like it spiked up. That's because it went into the fire range of the temperature, and this voxel caught on fire.
Claro, estamos viendo como la parte de arriba, esta parte de aquí, empieza a echar humo y luego mediante esta línea vemos como baja y empieza a entrar en la línea de fuego, de empezar a llamas y entonces empieza a arder. Y ahí lo vemos arder, ¿no? Es una pasada, ¿eh?
So our extinguisher, it's, not working very well, but
That's
we
nice.
got a debug extinguishing feature which we can use. Let's speed this up a little bit so I can speed up the propagation.
Bueno, está aumentando la velocidad de propagación para que veamos el efecto. ¡Qué locura! ¡Qué locura!
And then I can start extinguishing, and hopefully we'll see the fire to die down where I extinguish. So basically what you need to do is make sure that there is no more smoke anywhere Okay, maybe this was a bit too much.
You can reset it to make.
But
It's
yeah,
out of control, Leo.
yeah,
Fine, guys.
yeah.
Don't worry about it.
De las naves
we
nuevas,
finally answered the
la
age-old
Xperia
question
Talon,
from Billy
a secas
Joel.
es la mejor
It was
APU.
Leo.
Ahora mismo estamos haciendo otra cosa, no te lo puedo extender, ¿vale?
Yeah. So extinguishing works in a few different ways as well. So we, because we go physically based, we can kind of use the fire triangle, which is used by firefighters. Basically, if you take away one of the oxygen, fuel, or what was the other?
It's fuel.
Oxygen and
Willpower.
What?
Yeah, take away the
temperature.
you sap the will.
Heat.
Heat.
I think
Heat.
it's temperature, it's fuel, and it's materials. I think. Although materials is
No,
kind of
that's-
fuel, isn't it?
Yeah. Let me.
It's fuel.
Bueno,
I
están
don't know.
diciendo que para la hora de extinguir el
okay.
fuego, lo que estamos viendo es cómo haría, ¿no? Que tienen ese triángulo,
Fuel,
esa bola,
heat, and oxygen. It says.
y sería,
Yeah.
si
So
eliminas una de las tres, que sería combustible, oxígeno o temperatura, pues podrías extinguir el fuego, ¿no? Que es lo que están haciendo con eso.
Then by taking away the heat, we are able to kind of make the temperature go below the smoke temperature.
Claro, están hablando de que aquí, pues eliminando lo que es la temperatura, pueden bajar lo que es la línea esta de aquí, ¿no? La línea que estamos viendo aquí, del punto de ignición, y ahí pues el fuego se extingue.
And of course, like later down the line, if we kind of decompress a ship, then
Aquí están jugando con temperatura. O sea, dice que en el caso de los bomberos, sería esas tres opciones, ¿no? En este caso están solo quitando temperatura. No están hablando de quitar oxígeno en esa zona. Ojo con no malentender, ¿ok?
Stop the screen share. Thank you. Thank you, Leo.
No sé si habrá bomberos, pero seguro que sí hay bucaneros RV.
People saw the wonderful outside of the apartment there for a few seconds. That's great. One of the follow-up questions that I know folks, a lot of
No estaría
folks had in
mal.
the chat
No
there.
estaría mal una nave para extinguir
have
fuegos. Estaría
Have you
curiosa.
considered zero G and how any of this is going to work in zero G?
We're all nodding.
Yeah.
I explained a little bit that convection will play into convection, which is the only way zero G will affect fire and propagation. But Theo will explain a little bit with visuals, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of propagation, it makes sense, right? Zero G, there's no there's nothing pushing the fire up or sideways with wind or anything like that, so it radiates everything. The difficulty with zero G fire is the visuals, obviously, because gases behave differently in zero gravity. So it's something I think about a lot.
Keeps you up at night.
Keeps me up at night, and it's it's next on the list for me to take a look at.
Bueno, están hablando de la propagación del fuego en gravedad cero. Y dice que, claro, que el problema es que no se propaga el fuego al haber gravedad, al haber otras. La forma de propagarse el fuego es bastante distinta, y sobre todo los efectos visuales y cómo se comportan los gases en gravedad cero es bastante diferente. O sea que se están básicamente partiendo el tarro para poder imaginar las posibilidades de cómo quieren hacer los efectos visuales de ese tipo de comportamientos del fuego en gravedad cero.
Would that look cool, and is that what we expect?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, like with all things, you take it to the point of realism, then you bring it back to the point of fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, we've got 15 minutes left. What else we got? Missile effects.
Efectos de misiles.
Are you happy with the current missile effects?
¿Estás contento con el efecto actual de los misiles?
I'm not happy. I'm not.
No estoy contento.
I intend to improve them. I'm actually working on them myself at the moment. Sort of, I guess, in between official duties, I'm kind of tweaking the effects, and I think I've shown in in a couple of the update meetings that have already got some improvements to them. Just things like making them last longer, so increasing the life, and that helps readability. Just making the flares more visible from a distance, pushing out the actual thrust effects themselves. Just kind of minor tweaks. Again, similar to the quantum travel conversation. The missile trails are a much older effect. Possibly some of the first I worked on back in the day. But yeah, long story short, definitely planning on improving them. Already made some work on it.
Claro, está hablando de que realmente los efectos de los misiles fueron de los más antiguos que hay en el juego. Creo que es de los primeros en los que trabajó y de hecho. Y está comentando de que quieren que bueno, pues la estela, lo que es las llamas que salen del cohete, que sean mucho mejores, ¿no?
So yeah, gonna improve them, definitely.
And those will go along.
Y que definitivamente van a
other
mejorarlo, sí.
improvements to missiles in general being worked on by like the vehicle experience team and stuff, because
Yeah.
missiles in general are coming due for an overhaul, and you'll of course be hearing more about that.
Dice que además están trabajando los misiles en general y que vamos a escuchar más de eso. Ya sabemos que para 3.12 viene ese tema, ¿no? 3.11, perdón, para 3.11 viene ese tema, los misiles.
We're not going to find out. This is the only one in existence. This was the manufacturer prototype. This is literally the only one that is out in the world right now. So we're not going to find out if it's flyable.
I need some reference footage.
You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. Let's see, what else do we got here? We've seen what looks like cherry blossom trees in Horizon. Does the thought of them dropping leaves excite or terrify you?
For me, both. Yeah, it's terrifying in the sense that it's like more dynamic effects, but it's exciting because that's a real nice having leaves falling from a tree and getting blown around by the wind. And Ian, the art director, he wants Horizon to have that kind of feel to it, like a sort of a gentle breeze. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting actually. I'm only really joking when I say it's terrifying. But I seem to vaguely remember. I think I half jokingly said to Chris in one of the updates that if we knew the amount of leaves on a tree, we could actually directly.
What the fuck. Dice que el tipo que estaba hablando un día con Chris, que recuerda que bueno, que si supiéramos la cantidad de hojas que tiene un árbol, podíamos hacer el efecto para para hacer que se desprendieran del árbol y demás. Y claro, dice que le está preguntando directamente, Discolando, si le aterra, porque hemos visto en imágenes de Horizon, de cómo las hojas se las lleva el viento. Dice que sí, que parece ser que quiere que en Horizon, que le asusta un poco porque hay cantidad de efectos dinámicos y tal, que quiere como que tenga una especie de brisa suave la ciudad. Y que bueno, que entre esas cosas pues está el que las hojas se las vaya llevando el viento y demás. Vaya locura.
Yeah.
Right along with missile effects, let's move on to thruster effects.
Same kind of question, I guess. Yeah, I mean the answer is the same. Like, I mean, thruster effects were the things I was most passionate about for a while when I joined CIG, because I absolutely loved the thing about VFX is like it's quite.
Está moviéndose un poco el tema hablando de los efectos de los misiles, vamos a movernos a los efectos de los impulsores, y dice pues que es prácticamente la misma respuesta que para los misiles.
A flame, and they just placed it in the level, or it came from a weapon. As you just saw with Leo's demonstration of fire propagation, there's a hell of a lot of data that derives the effects these days. Thrusters always, I really liked thrusters because it was a similar kind of thing. It was fairly simple. It was like the thrust input, so the actual value from the ship was driving the strength curve of the particle. So you could do some really nice things with it. It's progressed over time. So we as well as thrust input, and Leo, was very much involved in the functionality side of this. We got overheating, we got damage, we got misfires, we got boost, we got shock diamonds when you're in atmosphere that you don't see them when you're not in atmosphere. There's a lot of ships in our game as well, so there's a lot of thrusters that need to get made. We're constantly improving the GPU particle system, so naturally some of the older effects don't look as good as other ones. We've actually
Está diciendo en resumidas cuentas de que han hecho mucho trabajo en lo que es el tema de fallos o los impulsores, de que eso se ve reflejado, de que hay muchas naves también en el juego y de que, pues, por supuesto, al haber tantas naves, que evidentemente han conseguido aprovechar la información de empuje de las naves para poder realizar ese trabajo en la fuerza en la que las partículas se van a ver a la hora de los impulsores, de ver el efecto de los impulsores, pero que evidentemente pues puede haber naves que todavía no hayan sido actualizadas y que pues que es mucho trabajo por hacer.
On the machine that the beast that is Star Citizen. So we just got to try and keep up, and we just need to find a bit of time to just look at all of the effects kind of collectively and just work on improvements that we can do across the board. I have been doing that again, similar to with the missiles. I've been working on the Gladius thruster effects. It's my favorite ship. Obviously, it's important for Squadron 42. So I've been looking at what do I need to do to make the Gladius effects tick all the boxes. That Chris has got really clear ideas on how they need to be improved, like general visibility, maneuvering thrusters in particular. I know that's a common thing that comes up, like maneuvering thrusters are a bit too small, you can't see them. We've maybe been a bit too aggressive with the lodding of them, so lots of work is being done with that. I'm personally involved, so yeah, make them better.
Bueno, está diciendo de que, sobre todo, Chris tiene una idea muy clara, hablando con respecto a la Gladius, que es la nave que va a ser la nave protagonista de Squadron 42, y de cómo mejorar los efectos visuales, que tiene una idea muy clara Chris, y el hecho de los impulsores, de poder hacer un mejor efecto en los impulsores, debido a que son pequeños y no se ve la agresividad que desprenden a la hora de hacer maniobras, y que eso es algo en lo que está mirando, y en general, pues mejorar todo lo que es el tema de efectos visuales de impulsores.
And again, we've moved more of our planet effects, well, all of our planet effects to the GPU, but we didn't have refraction. So a refraction particle, getting that heat wave look, wasn't available to us. So once we get that on the GPU, then yeah, we can put the shimmer back in. Yeah.
Okay. One of the most common questions that we get, and maybe put you on the spot a little bit here, space dust. Have you considered the option of letting people just check a box and remove it? Some people don't like it. I like it, but some people don't.
Yeah, I see that a lot, and I understand that it's not to everyone's taste. We're not planning on removing it, just because, well, it physically exists in our space, in our game. It's physically there. It's not an AR thing, because I know there's been conversations about, oh, hang on, what is the purpose of the space dust? I know that it's primarily to make it feel like you can see that you're moving. Basically, it gives you that parallax. You take the space dust out, you got no kind of sense of that you're moving. And I know that there'll be some people want the more realism side of it, that they don't care that they can't see any kind of visual cue. There's been talk of putting it onto an AR, so it's a deliberately artificial space dust kind of thing that helps with that. We did some tests quite a while ago on that sort of thing. Chris is quite keen on keeping the space dust in. One thing I will say is that, again, something that I've been doing personally, I've been tweaking the values. So again, it's quite not the most glamorous of effects, but I've just been looking at maybe not making the streaks quite as big, maybe reducing the amount, increasing the amount, depending on the location. So really just chipping away at that and just trying to make them not too intrusive, but
Están hablando del polvo del espacio, ¿no? Que si hay la posibilidad, si lo van a quitar o que den la opción de deshabilitarlo. En principio que no van a hacer esa opción, que es algo como está físico en el juego, que Chris quiere que eso esté en el juego, de alguna manera, para poder dar la sensación de que te estás moviendo la nave, que sabe que hay alguna gente que lo querría quitar, otra que no. Pero bueno, que en realidad la decisión es de mantenerlo y de quizás que es variar la cantidad o la densidad de ese polvo del espacio dependiendo de la situación en la que se esté.
Obviously, text or anything like that. It's more motion and intensity. So a good example is when I'm working on the fire effects and tweaking values with with different strengths on the actual fire effect. After like about an hour, it's hard for me to distinguish between the changes I'm making, and that just is because it's like when you're sitting in the back of a car that's moving for a long time, and then you stop, and then your vision continues to make you feel like you're moving. That happens definitely to me a lot. So it's important to take breaks, work on another type of effect even, or something completely different, and then come back to it. Otherwise, you just waste time making changes that don't make any sense.
I think that's where your colleagues come in useful as well. It's nice to show an effect that you've been staring at for so long, and you actually, I might give Tio some feedback, or he might give me some feedback.
Que dice que a la hora de trabajar que es bueno ir cambiando de materia cada cierto tiempo, porque si estás trabajando que sería la misma sensación de que si tú estás sentado en la parte de atrás de un coche, que llega un momento en que simplemente lo que ves son cosas pasar, no te fijas en los detalles. Dice que le pasa eso a la hora de trabajar y que entonces de vez en cuando pues hay que tomar un respiro de eso en lo que está trabajando en concreto, de una característica en la que está trabajando en concreto, y moverse a otra para tener otra perspectiva, para darse un descanso de esa repetición del mismo efecto.
Square thing in the middle of the scene right here. And it's like, oh, I've looked at that footage so many times, and for so long, I was completely oblivious to it. Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll recapture that. I didn't realize. I didn't say so. Yeah. So contact repetitiveness blindness is something that affects anything when you just work on it over and over and over for a prolonged period of time. Two final questions before we wrap up here. How do you balance VFX needs versus game performance?
Oh, well, that's a good one. I mean,
¿cómo balanceas las necesidades de efectos especiales en contraposición al desempeño del juego, al rendimiento del juego?
The fire is probably a good example of that. Ground storms was another example. We know we've got a clear brief on what it is we need to do, and it just so happens that the fire is gonna, that's very easily going to be a performance breaker. So we need to look at smart people like Leo help us out here, and Simon. Yeah, you do, Leo. We need to look at we need to make sure that they are performant. I mean, this is a game development core principle for everyone in every department. You've got to be able to make sure that it runs in frame. It's got to be optimal, and maybe you make some compromises for that, but you got to make sure that the compromises aren't to the detriment of the visual quality.
And go ahead. You want to add?
No, I was going to say this makes a big difference to me when working on impact effects, for example. I could visually I could throw it tons and tons of particles with smoke and like make it really look cool when a mass driver hits snow, which I've prototyped before and worked on. But you do feel that lag come in when you have an impact or fire a weapon, and that's just a no for me. It drives me crazy when I'm playing any other game. So it's something I will put performance before visuals, and trying to get as much visuals out of the performance.
Yeah, it's worth noting that in that fire demo that we saw today, and then in all the footage we've seen in previous ones, that is a very WIP effect for the fire itself.
Yeah.
It is, the work right now is on the tech and making sure the tech is lean and mean and functions the way, and then once all that's done, somebody will go in and start working on the actual fire effect itself. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, like Simon and Leo did great things with the ground storms. By the way, like that was a huge undertaking. There's a lot of effects going on the screen, and the performance is actually really good. Given what they're doing, the performance is actually really good on them. So yeah, Tio's absolutely right. Like we've got to make sure that the gameplay experience is kind of top priority there.
Claro, al final tienen que dar, dice que en resumidas cuentas un ejemplo es el fuego, que le dan... Mierda, no me dio tiempo a escucharlo.
I mean, yeah, it's do we need to justify it with some lore,
science?
with some tech behind
930 years worth of advanced technology.
Yeah. Leo's got some thoughts on this, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's called Space Fireworks.
Yeah. Just like.
Oh, they're space fireworks.
Say
no more. Say no. I didn't realize they were space fireworks. Now it all makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, just needed that clarification. I'm sure that's put an end to that argument.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for taking time out of the end of your week to be here on the show. I think folks really appreciate it. I know I did.
Ya van a acabar los
As
con
we
lo que
are
estaban
want to do at
comentando.
the end of every SCL now, we are going to throw we're going to throw a raid over to a Star Citizen streamer that is hopefully broadcasting right now. I haven't heard for certain, but we're going to find out. This is a French streamer named, I'm not good at pronouncing these things. I've been calling Teo Tio this entire time. I said Wimslow instead of Wilmslow, as Luke Presley once corrected me on. I'm terrible at the pronunciation, but we're going to try this. Water Patat, I think, if I've got that correct. She is a French streamer who does a lot of flight instruction and stuff, especially with the new flight model in 310. So when you go over there and the raid happens, say hi from the VFX team, and yeah, we'll see you back here next week, everybody. So take care. Thank you, Teo, Leo, Mike. I'm Jared. End the show.
Thank you.
See you.
See ya.
Vale. Pues lo que estaban comentando ya al final es que, claro, a la hora de hacer efectos especiales tienen que siempre priorizar lo que es el rendimiento, por cuestiones de jugabilidad. Y entonces decía que es un tema de que cuando comentaba el de arriba a la derecha, ¿no? Que cuando estaban haciendo efectos especiales de impactos y demás, que lo veían todo lleno de humo y tal, pero que bueno, que lamentablemente pues tienen que dar prioridad a lo que es el rendimiento primero y luego pues tratar de ajustarse a lo que hay. También estaba comentando el otro compañero de que la verdad es que a la hora de ver los efectos de las tormentas en las superficies y demás, que el equipo está haciendo un gran trabajo con las herramientas que están desarrollando para poder luego aplicarle efectos a esas tormentas también, y que el rendimiento es bastante decente también. Y eso es todo por el Star Citizen Live. Espero, chavales, que os haya gustado. Daros muchas gracias por el apoyo que me dais y las visitillas. Que sois la rehostia. Y que me voy a jugar al live. Ahora nos vemos, chavales.